All right. Welcome back to another episode of Light Skin Pod, number 46, creeping up on that 50 mark. Almost there. And today we have a special guest, good friend of mine, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Kattie Hagglund, Executive Director at Union Gospel Mission.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for being on with us.
Thank you for having me.
For sure, we appreciate it.
First podcast.
Well, we told her, why not be on the best one? So,
absolutely.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So like always, let's start. Tell us about baby Kattie.
Oh, baby Kattie.
Mm-hmm.
Baby Kattie. So, born and raised in Duluth.
Okay.
And I think the easiest way to describe baby Kattie, I grew up in the back room of a liquor store on the corner of 4th and 6th in downtown Duluth.
4th and 6th.
Last Chance Liquor.
Okay.
Yes.
That's closed now, right?
That's closed. It's now an apartment building.
Okay.
Just opened. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But, my grandpa opened it in the 50s, and my dad and my uncle took it over. And then my brother and I had it for a hot minute before we decided to go our own way.
Okay.
So
I'm going to ask a wild question. This ain't like the Last Chance Liquor. That's not like the last place on fire. Why am I saying,
No.
Katie, you in that life? But okay. Just so I wanted to clear it up for the people. Because everybody was going to ask, Katie, I can't believe you brought her on. She's nice. She's different.
Now, is it called that because it's the last chance before you go to East?
It was the last chance back in the 50s before you would get up to like International Falls to get alcohol. So that
is wild.
For a long time, my grandpa was the Polish Count of Minnesota, made his own beer, and so I like to pretend I was a Polish princess and run around 4th Street. And
do you still have some of his old cans or?
I do, yes, yeah. And then my grandma had the Polish Countess cans. So
dope. If you have an extra can, let us know. We can. You don't do vintage
I
around
should bring
here.
you guys one.
That would be cool.
Actually, back in that corner is my grandpa's old moonshine still too.
Amazing, yeah. So I'm pretty sure it was just like Schlitz in a repackaged can, but
that's funny. Hey, nobody knew.
Nobody knew, right? Yeah, so I had a pretty wild childhood, just kind of roamed the streets, and everybody seemed to know who I was just because I was Carl's granddaughter, Dave's daughter, and hard to miss little blonde girl running around 4th Street. So I had a really fun childhood, and also just really different experience than I think if I would have just grown up in the East End and not had that ability to interact with downtown Duluth. So
what schools did you go to?
So I went to Homecroft Elementary.
Okay. Yep.
Then I went to Woodland, which is no longer.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I went to the original East High School.
Okay. Which is Ordain now.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Now. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, going through, did you have a lot of friends and stuff like that growing up? Were you outgoing? Were you?
I was very much a tomboy.
Okay.
I hate to use that term, but that's the easiest way to explain it. So, I played a lot of sports. My dad was a quarterback at UMD, so football was our thing, and I couldn't play football.
Yeah.
They didn't have girls teams back then. So I made do with soccer and basketball and softball, but carried into the boys league a couple years beyond, and that was really fun for me, just to kind of be one of the two girls usually that were in the boys league holding our own. And, grew up with one brother originally. I have a biological brother, little brother, who is also very talented and athletic. And then when we were the boys were in elementary school, my parents adopted another brother. So, So I have two brothers.
From the States or out of the country?
From Duluth.
Okay.
So Sean and Kelly, my brothers, played basketball together. And my dad coached. And my dad kind of recognized that Sean didn't have... Every time he was bringing him home, he was bringing him to a different home. Got it. At the end of the practice. And sometimes it wasn't a place that he felt comfortable dropping off a small child at. And so he just started spending more time with us. And I think a couple years in, our parents finally sat us down and said, look, we would love Sean to be an official part of our family. And my brother and I, Kelly and I were like, is he not already? I thought that was already a thing. So... there again, just I'm really, looking back, I'm really appreciative and that I had kind of a different experience than I think a lot of the kids I went to school with did.
Yeah. So after high school, when we graduated, did you want to stick around Duluth? Do you think I need to go spread my wings, get out of here?
Yeah, I was like, get me out of here as fast as possible. And then I didn't leave. So I had visions to go to the U of M.
Okay.
And then my grandfather passed away, and so I stuck around and moved in with my grandma for a year.
Okay.
And went to UMD, and I went to UMD for 1 year, and then, you know, she was doing well and everything was going well. So I did eventually make my way out of Duluth for a couple years and went down to the U, and got 2 bachelor's degrees down there.
And what were they?
Psychology and communications.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I had visions I was going to be a psychologist. I had it all planned out for myself. And then, you know, life, man.
That's never a thing. That's never a thing.
I don't know why you plan for anything.
It's wild because a kid just a couple days ago was asking me, oh, what'd you go to college for? And I told him I got 2 degrees and, you know, two majors and minors. He's like, are you using them? I was like, nah. He said, so why do you always tell us that we need to get a plan together when y'all plans don't never work? I said, you know what?
That's a very smart kid.
You know what? I'm not upset at that. You know, but still get your shit together. Just to have at least a direction, you know, so.
Yeah, my wife and I met in college and never did what we graduated with. You know, never used it. Yep. Shout out to her. We've been married 20 years today. I better say that.
Congratulations.
Happy anniversary, Holly and Joseph.
That's amazing.
Yep. So after college, did you stick around the cities for a bit?
No, so I made my way back up here. And at that point, I didn't really have a plan anymore. I mean, I thought maybe I'd go to grad school. I was working at the liquor store just to kind of pass time. And then I found a program online through UMD at the time. And decided to give it a whirl. So it was a master's in advocacy and political leadership. And I will tell you, when I told my parents that I was going to go to this program, both of them were like, what the hell is that? And I was like, I don't really know, but it sounds really interesting to me. And so I applied, got in, which was amazing, and kind of just immersed myself in this totally different side of the world that I hadn't really thought about, which was politics and nonprofit, and learned a lot. And the beauty of that program, and I wish it was still in Duluth, it's not now, I think it's in St. Cloud.
We had sorry, I didn't mean to
no.
But one of our last couple guests was in this program.
Might have been,
Matt from Building the Dream Duluth?
Not Matt, Alex. I think so. I think it's the same program. Keep going.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was just a beautiful program. They brought in, it wasn't like your stereotypical, you have professors, you have you know, folks that are in the education side. They brought in people that were in the field. So I actually was able to learn from people that had been past legislators or had been executive directors of nonprofits or worked in those fields. And so you got to ask like real questions and they were responding with real time answers.
For sure.
So like, Roger Reinhardt was one of my teachers in that program, and had just come back from like being down at the state. And it was just a really beautiful experience. That being said, I still had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So during the end of that program, you have to complete 2 internships, one with a political kind of hemisphere. So whether that's like helping somebody run for office or working for somebody in office. And I was really lucky that I just didn't know anybody at the time. So I just threw my name into a candidate that I thought sounded interesting, who ended up being our former mayor, Emily Larson, when she was running for her first city council campaign. So I was Emily's kind of token intern and had no idea what I was doing, but she also equally was like, this is my first time. And so I got to spend a lot of time directly with her, just like door knocking and kind of going through the election process with her and seeing that experience. And honestly was really like excited about it, but also I hated asking people for their vote. I just like was so turned off by that. I didn't feel comfortable knocking on doors and doing that whole thing. So the second internship had to be with a nonprofit. and I ended up interning at Chum and worked with now our former representative Liz Olson was my supervisor there, and learned a lot about the other side of things of what are you doing on the other end to advocate for these organizations to the folks in charge. And so coming out of that experience, then I recognize that I'm much more drawn to the nonprofit world than I am the political world. So
wow, makes sense.
Yes,
I'm right there with you.
Yes. Yeah. So just took away a lot of like good experiences and good things that I don't think I would have ever like thought to participate in.
Yep. So how was it working at the Chum? Like just some of the things you got to see and experience, because you hear a lot of things from it, but being in there firsthand, how was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, even growing up in downtown, that's a different side of downtown that you really don't see. So yeah, once you're on the other end of the doors, it's a different experience. I saw a lot of people that were struggling. I saw a lot of people that had just really bad, like had fallen on hard times or had bad luck. And it was very humbling, especially as like a very young 20-year-old that already kind of had some things that were really going for me to, at the end of the day, watch families get locked into staircases because they didn't have enough shelter beds, or people laying on floors or tables because there wasn't enough space.
For sure.
And so that definitely like hit a different place inside me and kind of like lit this fire of me wanting to kind of be in that space.
For sure.
And I think that that's kind of when you know, right? Like either you're afraid of it or you're drawn to it. And I was definitely drawn to trying to be a helper in whatever capacity that I could be.
For sure. Yep.
So I just out of curiosity, I mean, I think we all have known somebody who's probably been to the Chum, whatever. But for those of us that have never been there, I mean, how many beds do they have? How many people can they serve? And then, didn't they just expand somewhere?
Yeah, so they, I think right now their beds, I think they're at like 75. I don't want to speak for them because I don't know off the top of my head, but they don't have enough. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people that spend the night on the floor or sitting at a table. We operate, the community operates the warming center during the cold month season, and I know that that's also equally kind of at max capacity each night. During the real cold nights, and there's just not enough places. So yeah, Chum is expanding right now. They start that project I think this summer sometime where they're going to just build up. So it'll be the same place that they are now, but bigger.
So after Chum, did that kind of get you transitioned into Union Gospel Mission?
No, it's been a long journey.
Let's get it. We got time.
Okay, good. Buckle up. I tell my therapist that every time I go walk in. Buckle up. So from there, I ended up kind of just sticking around the liquor store a little bit. My dad ended up passing away. So when my dad passed away, my brother Kelly and I really kind of had to figure out what we wanted to do. He and I kind of bounced around with some ideas for a while. We actually, for a brief time, owned a homebrew shop in Fitkers. And that was really more Kelly's passion than mine. But I loved creating and developing a business. Like, that was a really good experience for me to have to, from nothing to something, like, what are you doing for marketing? What are you doing for budgets? And my vision for that was really just to, like, be at the back end side of that and let my brother live his passion out. And what we realized is it was just really not the same pace that we were used to. It was a great business, and probably we could be doing it today, but both of us were like, this isn't it. And so after a couple of years of doing that, I, on a whim, because I'd been out of that world now for a couple of years, applied at Second Harvest. And no business applying for Second Harvest. Like, outside of my degree on paper and
just
like
bored.
an internship, I was like, this doesn't
this looks
fit,
fun.
but I feel like I could do this. So I convinced Shay Morris, the executive director there, to give me a chance, and she did. And it was also just like another thing where I am so fortunate that I got to work under her leadership and watch how she really took that organization and made it what it is today. And I drove by their new facility on the way. And
I know we're supposed to have a tour. I'm excited to get in there and check it out.
It looks gorgeous, and I'm just like so excited for them because they needed it even way back then.
Where is this at? Their new location.
So this one isn't up by the airport, is it?
No, the old one was at the airport. The new one is right by where like the old Iconics building. Iconics building.
Yeah, Iconics building.
So they're going in that new business park.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So did that for a couple years. I really focused on like marketing and their special events and fundraising, and that was good. I needed that experience. I needed to learn what that part of a nonprofit was like. What I started to recognize was Second Harvest is really like the top of the pyramid when it comes to that kind of work, where they're doing such important work, but you don't get to see often like the direct impact you're having on guests. And I really missed that experience that I had at Chum by being kind of pulled away from that. So there again, I saw an ad online for a social work position in Douglas County, Wisconsin, and was like, that sounds fun. I could be a social worker.
I'm a psychologist. They all go together.
Again, no business applying for this job. I did not have my social work license, did not have any experience being a social worker, and somehow convinced the deputy director over at Douglas County that I was made for this job. And
how long ago was that?
This was about now 7 or 8 years ago. So
okay, my wife worked for Douglas County as a social worker.
Got it.
Yeah, child protection, but I think that was longer.
Yeah,
than 7 years ago.
Yeah, so I worked in the adult services unit over there. My first year there was a whirlwind. I had to get my social work license, so I was doing school on the side and taking tests and doing all that, and then really like learning how to be a social worker as well. And I was, again, just really fortunate to get put in a team that had people that were really passionate about what they were doing and knew what they were doing and were really good at it. And so we worked with folks that had mental health issues, alcohol and drug addiction. We did adult protection. We really just covered any sort of adult service that you can think of. And sometimes that overlapped with CPS, but I, really dived into what are our adults experiencing in our community. And I loved it. I really thrived working with the clients that we had there that were kind of cycling through the system and trying to find ways to use the system to actually get them out of it, which is challenging and not always as simple as you would like it to be. And it was just another thing that I was able to see a different side of how that world works and how the court system works and how people get trapped in there and how it doesn't work for people. And so I, at that point, kind of had this full circle of knowledge about nonprofits and politics and court systems and liquor store back rooms and business management, and started to see that, as much as I have like jokingly said I'm not really made for anything, I maybe kind of put myself in a position now where like this would make sense, where I could go back and do something really cool. And so the Union Gospel Mission Executive Director job popped up, and somebody reached out to me and said, hey, have you seen this? You should apply. And again, kind of still, even with all that knowledge, like internally knowing like I could do this, I still felt like I went into that interview being like, my resume looks wild.
Sure,
I bounced,
I'm all over the place.
to
Nothing
here.
makes sense on this paper.
But for Union Gospel Mission, man, like my experiences have done me well. So I know downtown Duluth. I grew up in downtown Duluth. I knew what I was walking into. I wasn't afraid of what I was walking into. And I was also really passionate about wanting to kind of be able to have the authority or like be in the position to actually make some change. And so it's been about 2.5 years now that I've been the executive director there.
And, all right, so how have you seen kind of just say the impact of your work from when you got there to where you are now.
Yeah, so when I got to the mission had been there in Duluth for over 100 years. Well, at that point we were like coming up on our 100th anniversary. And so it had moved a couple times. It had functioned in different levels and capacities. But quite honestly, when I walked in, we weren't really holding our weight as an organization. The doors had been closed since COVID time. At that point, really the only program that was sort of operating was this curbside to-go meal program. Not very consistent for serving times. They were seeing maybe like 40 to 45 people a day come and access those meals. And so right from the beginning, I knew we had to like push ourselves. And so built a team around me with some really talented, passionate people, and just pushed ourselves to fill the gaps. And so I spent a lot of time reaching out to the other organizations in our communities and saying, look, I know that where I'm coming from isn't really doing much. So what do you want me to do with it? What can we do with it? What are you guys struggling to, hold up? And can I take some of that weight off of you? And so we set ourselves a goal, or I set a goal, which at the time my board of directors and even my team was like, this is a little wild, but I gave myself 2 months. Our 100th anniversary was November 1st. I started in the middle of September, and I was like, we are opening these doors on November 1st. And we did. So we reopened the doors initially for meals, and then we would kind of close in between, and just got our feet on the ground a little bit. And by I think early February, that next February, we were keeping the doors open all day long. We were serving lunch and dinner during the weekdays and really partnering with Damiano so that all the meals were covered and they didn't have to carry all of the weight. We could help them. And then we started kind of serving the in-between times as just a drop-in space for guests. There wasn't enough of that in downtown. There wasn't a place where people could go and access a bathroom or a cup of coffee or catch the weather on a TV and stay warm. So we kept our doors open all day long. We remodeled our upstairs of the mission. There was kind of community living space up there that wasn't being utilized. And so we ended up completely renovating this space and having 20 bedrooms for single folks to come and have a bed to rest their head on, and then they share kind of a kitchen living room space and free laundry and bathrooms. And so we added the housing, and then it was kind of like, what's the next thing? And the next thing for us was our summer food bag program. And so that first summer I was there, we started our summer food bag program, where at the mission we pack drawstring bags filled with easy to open, easy to prepare food.
Our kids tear that stuff up.
For the kids in the community. And so there again, it was just looking and saying, there's a gap. The backpack program doesn't run during the summer, and how can we make that accessible for kids, and how can we make sure they still have nutrition? And so that first year we started partnering with youth organizations that operated during the summer, and we said, let us pack the bags, let them bring them to you, and you give them out to your kiddos. And so we were really excited about that first year. I think we distributed a little under 200 bags each week. This past year, our second year doing it, we were up to 400 bags a week. Yeah, cool. So we expanded that significantly over the year. And then the last kind of thing that we started to add was kind of coming from my social work background of I have a lot of people that come through our doors each day and need connection, and they don't necessarily have the capacity to make an appointment with a county social worker or get to an appointment on time, or only solve all their problems in a very small window that they're offered. And so what would it look like if we just brought somebody onto our team that could be accessible to them and have that same skill set of a social worker, but be just available? And so we brought in an outreach coordinator to our team who is there all day long for the guests to get connected to resources, insurance, housing, whatever that looks like, and and just be available and build relationships. And
is that Jana's position?
that is Rick Eggy. So,
okay, yeah. Yep.
Rick Eggy joined us from HGC's crisis team. Yep. So he already had that kind of rapport with a lot of the folks that we serve, and he's just like ran with it. And a lot of the positions at the mission that I've added to our team have been like, here's in a nutshell what I think this should look like, but you make it what you think it feels right.
For sure.
And so I've just been so lucky that the people that have come on board with me, we've had a whole new team since I started, have like ran with their passions and built the programs the way that they feel good about and the way I feel good about having. And so, we hit our capacity in our space real quick.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Real quick. So now we got big plans for the future.
For sure. And before we go into that, it's wild because hearing you tell the story, it's like every facet of life that you've been through, whether it was the college, part, or going to Second Harvest, or the social work, it all came together for you in this position.
It really did.
Which is cool. And sometimes, like, you just never know what certain moments are for until they pop up. You're like, oh shit, all right, now this makes sense of why my life was so chaotic and I was just applying the ads. Now look at me, So.
That's exactly how I feel. I feel like it was at the time, it's hard to see where you're headed. And that's why I say, like, I don't like to plan for anything anymore, because I've seen those plans, those like set in stone goals that you have, when they don't happen, that can be really discouraging. And instead, when you just kind of follow your gut and your intuition, it tends to take you in the right space, and like you'll get there. It might not go at the same like speed that you want it to get there, but you'll get there eventually. And it's wild when you find it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, now what? Well, one question is: so when y'all do the backpacking, in the summer, does that food come from Second Harvest? Or
some of it does.
Okay.
Yep, some of it does now. Last year, we were able to utilize them. There again, we weren't like in good partnership with anybody when I started the mission, so that took time. That took some like rebuilding, and once we got there, we were able to use food from Second Harvest. We also work with an organization, kind of a civic group called Project Joy.
Oh yeah, I know them.
Yep, they're great. Shout out to Laura Plies and her team. They're fantastic, and so they have really truly been like the heart and soul of like the funding for that program and made it the success that it is. And so we sometimes have to purchase that product.
For sure.
We just want it to be the right thing for the kids, try to balance like the nutrition, but also sometimes that's tough because you also want to make sure that if they don't have a grown-up with them to help make that meal, that they can still
do it. Yeah, it's not wasteful. And that's one thing we appreciate, too, is I know when Jana was calling us, just saying, she's telling us what's going to be in the bag, she said, now, we can take some stuff out if you don't think, So a lot of, well, to be honest, everything we got was tailored for our kids. It was perfect. And nothing went to waste. Because we were big on, like, I hate stuff getting wasted.
Yes.
And the first time we got them, the kids go through the bag, they throw this out. It's like, shit, all right, we got all these things. But then the next couple times, there was nothing. I was like, all right, this is perfect now.
Yes.
And then if there is a kid or two or family or two that can use some other things, y'all are always good about adjusting, for that. So meeting those needs is great. And it helps take a lot of some of that burden off us, too, because we get those weekend calls of like, hey, we ain't got food. Can you help? Now I know, look, you just got a bag of food, and sometimes I give you 2.
Yes.
You're good. Eat what's in the fucking house, So,
well, that makes my heart happy, because, it really is, like, all of the things that we've done at the mission have just been looking at our community and saying, what are the gaps, and what could we do with our small team and our time and our space to help make something better for somebody. So...
How many people are y'all seeing now a day? I remember you said it was around 40 when you first started.
It was around 40 when I first started. Now we're hitting meals over 300. So we have over 300 people sometimes join us for a meal time.
What, per day?
Per meal. If we're serving lunch, we see 300, and then we might see like folks, leave for the afternoon, and then we'll see all of them come back for dinner. So. And
you're still on First Street.
We're still on First Street.
They've blocked down from us.
Yeah.
Literally, just blocked down from us.
I remember going there as a kid to help serve.
Hungry.
Yeah.
I ate a little.
Yeah, I know. It's all right.
Yeah.
We appreciate your help, sir, but if you could not come back anymore.
Yeah.
People gotta eat. So.
Yeah, so it's been wild. We definitely have reached the capacity for what we can handle.
In that building, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how the hell y'all do. I've been in there. 300 people in there
300
is insane.
Yeah. And I will say a lot of that credit goes to our guests because they recognize how many people are coming and going out of there, and they make room. You know, we don't have the room, so they make the room for
sure.
each other.
That's
and
cool.
So, you know, folks kind of have found their window of time where they'll come in, join us, and step outside to make space for others. So
now for people, and honestly, this is more of a curious question for me, because we work with youth and things like that. And you hear a lot of people talking about homelessness is because of this or X and Y. Being in that field, do you see a lot of it is, maybe contributed to either drugs or mental health issues or maybe just purely financial hard times? What is kind of what y'all see? What's the need?
Yeah, I think I always just like to say that I've never met somebody that said, I just want to be homeless.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not a situation that is easy to be in, especially in our region with our weather and with our terrain of really being built on a hill.
Yeah, you could see it in Hawaii or California, but here,
it's crazy. It doesn't make sense here.
It's not an easy space. So what we often see are folks that, mental health is a huge contributor, I think. I think oftentimes people jump to the drugs and alcohol use, but often that's the precursor of that is mental health.
Yeah.
So yes, that might be what's happening now or what you're seeing now, but the factor that weighed into that was mental health and untreated mental health. And so, we see a lot of folks that are struggling with mental health. And we also see a lot of folks that are have had, medical issues that have created a lot of bills or had life, changes, whether that be divorce, that, you have to alter your whole financial income and it's not affordable to live on your own, maybe from what you were coming from. People losing their parents or their families at a young age and not kind of having that foundation to fall back on. I think there's a lot that happens that people don't see, and unfortunately what you see oftentimes just depicted is the drugs and alcohol piece, and that's just honestly, in my viewpoint, from what I see on a day-to-day basis, is survival. It's really a way to cope with the experiences that that our guests are having. It's a way to try and self-medicate if you are struggling with mental health. It's a way, to find security in some spaces, because if you're able to kind of connect with folks that are in certain scenes, so to speak, that provides safety and security for folks, especially our female guests. Oftentimes kind of try and stick with somebody that can protect them, and that might not be the best fit. So I don't think that there's necessarily one contributing factor to why people are experiencing homelessness. I think it can happen so quick. Some of the stories that I have heard from our guests, it's like you take a hard look in the mirror and say, that could be me. That's really all it would take, is a car accident or a medical issue to come up, or to lose a job, or end up pregnant at a young age and not be able to access resources and not have the family or the friendships or the support that you need to kind of help you get over that hump. And so a lot of the stories I hear are stories that I could be hearing from a friend, and have heard from friends. They just have had safety nets.
For sure. Yes, and you said, how fast it can happen. I mean, sometimes we see it sometimes with youth. we got a kid now that's 16, or probably 17 now, but and we coaching football, and knew the home situation just wasn't good, but then one day he just kind of went out and was looking for just an outlet. Next thing you know, hooked on drugs, and then just was so dependent on that, and went from having a place to live and support, and then in 2 or 3 weeks lost 30, 40 pounds and now on the street. It's like, and you try to wrap your head around it, like, how in the hell did this happen at the pace that it did? And sometimes we sit and talk to people, oh, it's just drugs. They said, nah, we've been there through the journey. Like, there was a point this kid wouldn't even touch him. So the question we always ask is, okay, how do we help kids not, go from what they're struggling with to not look for a safety net in drugs or alcohol or whatever? How do you fill that gap? And that's the hardest question. And I don't think, because I look at people who even have money and come from, a good background, that when they stressing, what's the first thing they do? Pick up a bottle. Or they, want to smoke. It's like, it happens to everybody.
Yes.
It's just some people mentally are probably struggling so much that one time is you're done, and they have nothing else to go back to. No support system, no, so for a lot of people who don't get it, it's nice to hear it firsthand, and to understand a little bit more, because I'm telling you, there was a point I didn't think about that. I just knew, this is what I see, let's get them off of drugs. Shit, that's part one. You know what I mean? I got 10 other steps after that, if we can get this done. So
and I just heard this story from somebody in the nonprofit world not that long ago, and I loved the way that they described it. And it's like the story of the 3 sisters, where they come upon a creek and there's babies like going down the river, and the one sister like runs in the water and starts like pulling babies out of it, and the next sister like starts taking care of the babies on the side of the creek, and clothing them and drying them off, and the third sister goes upstream and is like, who the hell is throwing babies in the water? And I think that's the part that's missed, is like, what is happening to create these systems? And that falls on a lot of things. That falls on our mental health system. That falls on the resources and the funding that we have available for schools, generational poverty. I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors, and I wish that more people could connect with the people before they're thrown in the water, because once you see them afterwards, then it's really easy, and I see a lot of people make quick judgments.
For sure.
That's a complex issue, because we've had a lot of people, and you ask that question, like, why is it this way? And a lot of it, I mean, you guys are treating the symptom, right? But what's the cause? I mean, I remember growing up, there was a handful, and maybe I was oblivious to a lot of it, but it seemed like the number of homeless people in Duluth was drastically smaller. You kind of knew who they were. You saw them around a lot. And now it's just exploded. And it's that way everywhere. Man, what a difficult problem to try to solve.
Yeah, and I think it's just, there's so many things, right? Like the cost of living has gone up. The cost of rent has increased. Food has increased. And all of those things that everybody is experiencing can have just that immediate impact on somebody that's really living right on the border. And so it's once you're in the river too, it is real tough to get yourself out of.
Or you battling currents and rapids. And it's crazy. So, all right. So you talked about new project going up. Okay. Tell us a little bit about that, and then kind of what's the goal with it.
And so, again, I've been with the mission for about 2.5 years, and the first 1.5 years was really like, what are we doing internally? All my focus went into that. And once that my team kind of got their feet on the ground and we felt like, okay, we're there, I got to spend more time outside of our space and really connecting with the other organizations more and more, and becoming more involved in kind of the community collaborations that were happening. And so it was really a crossroads, right? So internally we realized if you're serving 300 people and you got 95 chairs in your dining hall, you're like at capacity. And what I was hearing from our community partners was there's still all these gaps that we're experiencing as a community, as a town, and how can we work together to fill them? And so a lot of what we saw, especially during COVID, is like programs starting that were really, in some ways, kind of throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks, and maybe not super sustainable the way they were set up, but like you at least there's something, right? And so as I started to look at what could the mission be next, I started to look at all of those programs that were struggling and starting to kind of feel the impact of COVID money being gone and things looking a little different, and more folks coming into the system, and decided with my board of directors that it was time for the mission to change and to move. And we've already moved 7 times. What's the difference? And so we started to look at like, what would that look like? What could that look like? Do we just want to keep with the programs we have now, or can we grow both in space and programming? And so I worked really cohesively with all of the other organizations in the community, with the city, with the county, with the business chamber, and just asked the questions, and of our guests too, like, what are you experiencing? What do you wish things could look like? How would those changes change your path? How could they change your path? And really what I was hearing from everybody was, gosh, it would be so great if there was one space that was really like a triage space. If there was one space where folks could go to and access all of the things that they need, those basic necessities, bathrooms, food, shelter, clothing if they need it, showers if they need it, laundry to wash their clothes for a job interview, medical support, social service support. If they could just go to one space and have all of that in a space, how much easier it would be to at least focus on your goals.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about, how am I going to get to my appointment across town? How am I going to get to a meal at the mission at this time? And then I have to be to the warming center by this time. And so I really kind of just threw out there, I would like to be a triage. I would like the mission to be able to encompass all of those things in one space and offer that for our guests. And we were really lucky that early on, the Duluth HRA stepped in and said, this sounds like a great idea. Let us help you build a building, or let us help you renovate something to make that happen. Because nowhere in my past history have I built a building.
That wasn't the ad.
That was not in the resume. So
it will be now.
It will be now, right? So appreciative that early on they said, let us help you through this process. Let us help you figure out how to fundraise for this and get the funding you need and build this space. And then the city came on board and said, have you thought about this space on across from the St. Louis County Government Services Center? And it right now is a parking lot. And what would that look like if we work together to use that space for something else? And so they came on board and have provided us with an opportunity to utilize that land. And so there again, it was thinking of, if we're going to build something, we need to make sure it's in the right space for the guests too, because there is programming still at Chum, and there is programming at Damiano and the Government Services Center. And we want guests to be able to access that. And so if we're all in this together, let's be in this together. And so then the next step was really just designing, what does that space look like? And so we just kind of sat down and started shooting off what could be in this space and what could we make happen. And so the new mission, the future mission, is really a beautiful, beautiful compilation of all that work. Main level is our Mission Engagement Center. It's got a larger dining hall, so we can actually fit all 300 plus people if they come in. It has a separate drop-in space, so if guests are coming in during the day to spend their day with us, they can utilize a little softer seating and more comfortable space for them to rest and recharge. It has outdoor space behind the building that's really designated for the guests. A lot of times our guests get pushed along downtown and get asked to leave. Those public spaces that we all enjoy are not necessarily available in the same way for everybody. And so we wanted to be able to create a space that if it's a nice day out that they can feel comfortable and safe in. So it's got designated outdoor space. And then we really looked at, if we're filling all of the basic needs, if we can take that weight off people's shoulder, what can we start to incorporate to get them encouraged and motivated to want to make some like real long-term change?
Yep.
So adding in showers, adding in laundry, adding in clothing and those sorts of things were important, but the medical piece, the how do we connect with people's mental health? How do we address those struggles that they're having? So we're building a medical exam office that a local healthcare provider's already kind of come on board and said, we'll help operate that space. If you build it, we will come. Yeah. And then looking at Rick's position that we have now at the mission and seeing how successful and like beneficial that has been for our guests, we recognized early on, we need more Ricks. We need more people on site to be able to build relationships with our guests, hear their stories, hear the experiences that they're having, and make the connections for them, whether they are asking for that support or they're just not aware of the resources, and we can kind of encourage the support. So bringing on more social services folks to the team is going to be really important in the new space. And so the main level, that mission engagement center, is really that triage that I had initially envisioned and kind of thrown out there. And we're super excited about it. Floors 2 and 3, because we're like, that's not enough. We need to do some more. We've decided that we really wanted to also just tackle the big picture issue, which is we don't have enough housing in our community. And so because we provide those 20 units now, we felt that we could handle double that. So floors 2 and 3 of our new location will be filled with 40 efficiency units of permanent supportive housing. So permanent supportive housing means you're coming to us from a long-term homeless situation, or you've experienced homelessness several times over the course of your history. And you've also got some qualifying factors, whether that's mental health issues or whatever that may be. And so not only are we going to be able to provide you with housing, and that, that will be able to take one weight off your shoulders, but all of the folks that will be staying with us will also get connected to a case manager. And so that case manager will be there to offer support to make sure you're making appointments for yourself to kind of change the long-term path, right? That you're making sure your bills are paid, that you have access to food and nutrition, that you got transportation. All of those things are going to be, assisted for the folks that are joining us.
And that's good. That wraparound support is everything. Because housing people is one thing, and, providing showers and stuff, but making sure they are also getting the resources that they need, and setting their life up to be to a place where they can feel like, all right, I can take charge of my life again. It's huge.
Yeah.
That's big.
Absolutely. And I think that there's studies, right, where the longer somebody is experiencing homelessness, the harder it is once they're housed to stay housed, because they've had so much trauma and experience that it is really difficult if you're just kind of thrown into a bedroom and somebody's like, hey, we got you housed, good luck. You still don't have that support. You're still living outdoors in a lot of ways. And so having somebody to be able to be there and be supportive and make sure that they're, focusing on the goals that they have for themselves is just going to be huge. And it's successful. It's shown to be successful across the board. And there, again, the county stepped in and said, this is a good program, and let us help you set this up and make sure you can utilize that program. And so it's really been a community project. We're down at the state right now trying to fund for it, which is not my favorite thing ever. But it's important, and we have a lot of supporters, a lot of local legislators that are supportive of this project and the vision we have for the community, because it's really not Union Gospel Mission expanding. This is a community plan, and we're a piece of that.
For sure.
Yeah, I would say, too, of everything we've heard, this sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, what about, the traffic, though? This is, such a minor issue, but... So we're right across from the St. Louis County building?
Yes.
It's on 2nd Street.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, man, the traffic that flies through there... if you have 300 people in and out.
They're going to have to get one of those. They're going to make another crosswalk, and then maybe one of those pedestrian crossing.
Yeah. And so we, again, just with working with Duluth HRA, those are all things we've really tried to focus on and tried to say, hey, what we experience right now at the Mission, because we have so many people and we don't have enough space, is a lot of times if you drive by the Mission, there's a lot of people outside. And not to their own, not necessarily by choice, but because we just don't have space.
Yeah, exactly.
And so with the new building and working with LHB Architect Company, the design has really been in mind of where are we putting this and how can we make this safe for both the folks that are driving down the road and also the guests that are coming to access our space or volunteers and those sorts of things. So there again with the outdoor space and designating it on the back, and the hope is that even if we have guests coming and going, by more things being in one space, the hope is that we're really just encouraging them to spend their time with us until we can get them connected to something better. So even the drop-in center space, the plan, the vision is that during cold months, that will operate as an overnight warming center. So the Mission will become a 24/7 space and really try to be all of the things that somebody would need and not have to kind of come in and out.
Yeah.
You won't see, hopefully, all those folks exiting and entering all day long. I mean, you will, but
which is a minor issue, but I think it's important that people hear that, hey, you're putting thought into that too. You don't want detractors to just this is terrible.
Because that's the first thing people are going to say. It's just ask questions. All you got to do is ask questions. I'm bitching. That's what people do. People love to bitch for no reason.
Well, and right now, I mean, to be fair, we recognize that if you're watching our guests after our meal, you're seeing a flow of foot traffic down First Street, crossing Lake Avenue, and some of those busy intersections that are not safe either. And so the goal of us being in this new space, in this new location, is really that, yes, it is a busy street. I absolutely recognize that. I take that street almost every day. But it's a lot less space that folks will be navigating than where we are located right now, where they really have to venture across downtown.
It'd be nice to have a skywalk to the social services building.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be nice.
Yes.
That would be nice. Cause
make some calls for me.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I'll look for an ad, see if we can build that.
Yeah.
I'll find something. So much of what you're talking about is what we're trying to do too at NYS, just that one stop for whatever, and because we recognize there are even for 14-year-olds, 15, it's they have appointments sometimes way out west, HDC, then they got to go downtown and a lot of the kids, they get nervous I don't want to walk down here, or I don't want to cross up on 4th because just how it is. And sometimes the people they run into, especially if they're females, we hear all the time of the girls just being scared because some of the guys might say stuff to them. It's all right, how can we encompass mental health services, counseling, resources for jobs? Obviously, we do meals and clothes and stuff like that, but just have everything housed here. That way, when people come, even the salon, building a salon there, it's kids can come there now and eat, get clothes, get a haircut, and I just hired a staff that's purely mental health. So it's just those little changes alone have been super good, but there's still gaps we got to fill. And we're getting there, and that's why I love to hear what y'all doing, because man, all right, we right there, it's just you focus is the biggest thing. But even wanting to get a lot of parent involvement is big because some of the parents we have are homeless, and the kids are living somewhere else, or some of the kids are homeless, so how do we encompass all of this and even find ways to partner with y'all, or offer resources that can help the family as a whole. There's some exciting things going on around here. And my goal is to get to a point where none of our services are needed. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And you hear people say, well, why are you building this? Because to be honest, right now there's a fucking need and nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
So until y'all step in and help us cover this need, this is what I'm going to have to do.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I'm going to come to y'all for help.
I say that all the time. My mission is to work myself out of a job.
Yep.
But the reality is we're not there yet.
Yep.
And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that it looks a lot better when I am on the other side.
For sure. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been good to, hear the story, hear your passion too, and just kind of see where y'all going. Even in a short time, like you said, 2.5 years. It's awesome. I mean, I've been doing what I'm doing now for about 6 years, and even to see where we've came from. And it's all about the team around you.
Oh, absolutely.
I tell people all the time, I'll put my team up against anybody in my field. And I'm going to tell you, I just feel like we can't. I love those guys.
Yeah.
They are so good.
It's good that you're in the youth and I'm with the kind of adults because our teams would be tough.
Yeah, they would. And it is. Y'all got some great people. Like you said, Jan, I love Janet.
Janet, Corinne, Mason, Rochelle, Rick.
It's good
Jess,
people. It is good people around here with good hearts, and we need them. It's all needed.
Yeah,
so.
You need some hustlers.
Yeah, for sure.
You find yourself some hustlers, you're set.
You're good to go. And not afraid to ask people for something and take a no. If it's a no, it's a no. Who cares? I'm cool with that. You know? So, and then I'll ask you a question that we ask everybody as we start to wrap up is, if you could say something to your younger self, what would it be?
Ooh. I would say, I think you kind of just nailed it. Like, don't be afraid of the no. For a really long time, I was so focused on, like, things having to go a certain way. And when I let that go, when I was able to just kind of trust my gut and go where the universe and the world wanted me to go, it got so much easier. When I stopped kind of battling against where I was drawn to and really just trusting that inside space, that fire, everything made much more sense.
For sure.
Yeah. Whether that's professional or, personal or whatever it may be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, keep up what y'all doing. I'm excited. Obviously, I'll be popping in and out always, though, just to come say hey.
Good.
And we thank all y'all for listening. And like always, like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see y'all next time.